suggestions to the, by the board, our superintendent?
I have none at this time. I don't know if the board does.
We're good. Citizens' comments? None to be heard.
I move to approve the minutes of March 13th, 2019.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
So I move to consider the consideration of a tabled vote on the 2019-2020 school calendar.
Second.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank Dr. Conway for the information that you provided for us. It was very helpful, so thank you.
Go ahead.
Dr. Conway, have you done any formal evaluations of those late starts?
Dr. Conway, would you mind going to the microphone? Thank you.
No formal evaluations, just discussions.
Just what?
Just discussions with teachers regarding them, but that's where we're at.
So are you planning to do evaluations of those late start times next year?
Well, I guess it would depend on what the board, is the board looking to go down to 8 or 9 late starts?
I don't know. I think we're just, I'm interested in the efficacy of those days.
Okay, I'm sure we can do some type of evaluation of it and get that data back to the board.
All in favor?
Were we,
Are we done with discussion?
Oh, go ahead.
I don't have anything else, but I don't know if anyone else has any
I didn't
questions
see any
about
other hands.
the,
All in favor? Let's try this again.
School calendar? I guess so.
You got it, I think. Budget workshop updates.
So whoops, I'm going to switch gears, sorry. So very quickly looking at your handouts that are in your packets. Once you get past the calendar, onto the next page, there is a second draft of the budget. When we're looking at the kind of the bottom line figures. So after this first, kind of in our first round of cuts, our second draft, if you look on the grand total line going all the way across the bottom, we were able to bring it down to $853,000, which represents a 4.76% increase. The way we got there, there is a green paper that's next, and that's the revenue side. We can come back to that in just a second, but if you go to the, kind of to the end, you can see what the budget requests, where they kind of stand. And if you keep flipping your pages, you'll actually get to the, where you can see the actual reductions that are taking place, which is the very last page there. So I don't know if you want to start by discussing or taking a look at some of those suggested cuts at that point, and then if you have questions, we can kind of work from there.
So I got number one question, industrial arts for the high school equipment. How does a safety item become non-safety in one meeting?
No, we're actually going to take the industrial arts equipment and look to purchase it in this year's budget. So that's why it's out, looks like it's out of the budget, but we're actually looking to replace those items. We'll just do it on this budget rather than next year's budget.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a good
Okay.
question.
And the same goes with this computer purchase.
Yes, yeah.
So those are being purchased this
Yes.
And the
Before
textbooks and everything
Yes,
else.
Yep,
Anything that's highlighted that says purchasing fiscal year 19, we're going to buy in this year.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, where does it say that?
say that.
This is on this page.
Oh, on that sheet, okay, yeah.
Page
It's 8 of 8.
8 of
8 of 8,
Yeah.
Okay,
the dark highlighted items.
okay.
I'm happy. I don't want to have a safety item not funded.
I have a question about all the painting we're doing. When you total it all up, it's a significant amount of money. And with everything we're doing for the bond, why is all the painting such a priority for this year?
That's a great question. Do you want to, I'm okay if you want to answer also.
We do that level of painting every single year. That's how much painting it takes to keep these buildings up in this district. That's both some inside painting and exterior painting. But we do that level every single year.
That is a great question, though, because painting is one of those things that once you get behind, you're going to be behind, and then you're going to get questions like, how come you guys haven't painted in here in so long, or painted this, that, or the other thing? So that's why it's been a continual budget item, because I did ask that question also.
Okay. Thank you, thank you.
The other thing is, you don't have all the year 2 and 3 numbers.
Go on the back side, sorry, here. Like on the back side here is some of your, like yellow is still year 2.
Yeah, but that's, if I add 200,000 to these numbers,
Yep.
I'm going to get over 383?
Yes, that's about right, yes.
But I have a feeling when I look at them, go back to the Oak Point, you look at, they want 42 million, you divide that by years,
Right,
and you get 383.
yep,
And these items up here happen to be personnel. And this here is down into, not Oak Point for rugs, I don't
Right.
think they've marked anything. And so I have a feeling Sean is missing a lot of items that should be in year 2.
he's got a lot of things, he's actually got a 5-year plan on, and he did submit that to me, so what I did was just take the numbers that he was looking at in year 2 and 3 moving forward. But he does have 5-year plans for stuff. A lot like the lights, for example, the door locks, which is, he's got some in there, he's got some going into, like 3 years out, so it is, Sean's on it. I'm gonna give him a lot of credit. He's worked on that.
Go ahead.
I have a question about the high school JMG coach. Could someone explain that to me one more time, what that position is?
So Sean, do you want to talk a little bit about JMG? Because if you are comfortable doing that, I don't.
I'm comfortable. So this conversation actually started last school year. JMG came, anyone wants to correct me if I'm wrong, JMG came, my understanding is JMG came to the school after the budget was done, actually offered our school district a teacher at no cost, but there was some guidelines, some things that our school couldn't meet at the time. Like JMG wanted to have their own classroom, we didn't have room for them, we didn't have a line in the budget for them. And so, very active in JMG. JMG helps students with a lot of different things under, students who need to be caught up on their classwork, who may come from low-income families, who are behind in their studies. Offers them different types of opportunities to visit workforce type program. They set up trips to Chimbro, Bank of America, Unum. It provides students with a lot of different opportunities, and they're willing to bring that program at very to little no cost to our district. But we needed to have a budget line for it and a little bit of skin in the game.
So is that position not, are they not in a position to give that money to us this year?
They are actually waiting on the state
Yeah.
I was actually had a conversation early this week with their president who said they're looking to add 12 new programs and I can't say promise,
Yeah.
but pretty much promised me that Miranda Cook would be on one of those 12.
Yeah.
But he can't commit to that till he has the money,
Right.
just like people can't commit to anything.
So would we be in a position to accept that?
The way I'm gonna say this is if they come through and have a person for us, we'll find a way to make it work. That's kind of my position. I know we had to cut around the budget and stuff, but I also think that if it comes through, we find a way to make it work. So,
How many students do you see this helping?
It depends.
yeah,
Every school has a different, it depends how the principal and JMG agrees to set it up. Some schools have a set amount of students that are in the JMG class. They see whatever, 20, 30 kids a day, just like a normal class. Some schools, like Winslow, I went and spoke to their students. They kind of rotate so more kids get access to the program. It's really how, it's a partnership. It's a public-private partnership.
And JMG means jobs for
Jobs for
Maine
graduates.
graduates, okay.
They're in junior high, high school, and, junior high, high school, and college now.
Thank you.
I can see you have a question, Kathy.
I'm just waiting to make sure if it's the right time. Boy, you're pretty perceptive. Just wondering if we got any more information about the behavioral, high school
Yes.
behavioral program.
yes. Okay, I was prepared. Oh, right here, it's right in front of me. So, I did talk to Ryan about it, and using the Maine Unified Special Education regulations, self-contained classrooms shall be limited to serving children within a 5-year chronological age span. So, for example, if it's a 10 to 14, or then 15 to 20 is kind of what's listed in the guidelines. So, kind of going back to your question, trying to put it as a 6 through 12 program is, they don't recommend that, and they would actually frown upon that.
Okay.
At that point. So that's a great question, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Meserve, did I answer that correctly?
And the age groups that would be served would fall out of that 5-year span?
Yeah. Because it'd be a 9 to 12. The program that we're looking at bringing in is a grade 9 through 12.
Yeah, right.
So,
That's 4
yes.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking. I think I was thinking that high school was 3 years, just like middle school. I don't know.
Our kids are advancing fast.
Yeah, yeah.
I noticed the transfer of West Elementary School classroom teacher to Manchester Elementary School teacher.
Yes, so, yeah, thank you for asking that question, Alex. So we do have a resignation that's happening in Manchester, or excuse me, in Wayne. So did a little digging and looked at their history and found that Wayne does have a tradition of having combined classes. It looks like in the past, they kind of separated them. But knowing, this is kind of what was brought up with, could we look at positions and how it was working? So it seemed we wouldn't have to cut anybody. If we had a resignation, we could go back to the combined classes, a K1, a 2-3, a 4-5. Currently, it is a 4-5. So one resignation we'd have, then we'd have one kind of extra position there that we could then use to bring over to Manchester to fill the Manchester open position, the need for the extra classroom. And I believe it, Ms. Hartford, correct me if I'm wrong, you're looking at a grade 3 if everything plays out the way you expect it. Right. So that's kind of why we did that at that point. So, good, thank you.
And this has been done before, but it's not going to change it so that's overloading the kids or the teachers remaining in Wayne?
Right, we would add an extra EdTech in, an EdTech 3, because we would feel that the teachers would need that support if they're going to go over to combined classrooms. So we'd add an extra EdTech 3 out at the Wayne Elementary School.
Would that be an additional position, or is that just moving an EdTech 3 from somewhere else?
It would be an additional position, so it's...
Oh, I see
yeah.
it, sorry, yeah, okay. One other question, what about the concern in Reed Field for either, I can't remember if it's fourth or fifth grade?
It was grade 5,
Right.
yeah. So knowing that we're going over to combined classes, I think I have a hard time saying we're going to take a class of roughly 22 and divide them into 11. I can't with the straight face do that financially. I do realize there's a lot of needs there, and Mr. Boston has done a really good job of advocating for that. So that was a tough decision to make.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Patty.
The EdTech at Reed Field that's on the no-go list
Yep.
for first grade, can you remind me, Mr. Boston, what is that situation or what? Yeah, sorry. Sorry.
So this position came not quite mid-year, November for us, based on our enrollment in kindergarten. We had 20 in each class, so it was only a one-year position.
Oh, yeah. Now I
Okay.
got it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
How many kids does that put in that one class at Wayne with combining? How many children will be in?
It would be 22. Yeah.
At what grade level? Two?
But it's a teacher and an
Kindergarten.
ed tech
Right.
is in there.
Was that a K-1? Was that what you said?
No,
Yeah.
5.
K1 and a 2-3.
Okay, but which one would have 22?
The K, yeah, I'll ask. Yeah. They do know the numbers way better than I do.
Yes, so it would be a K1 of 22 or 23, a 2-3 of 22, and a 4-5 of 21. And there would be 2 ed techs.
Can I ask a follow-up? So how many, sorry, I wish I had the numbers in front. How many combined, can you remind me how many combined classes are there now?
Right now, there is a 4-5 combination of 20 students. The other classes have 10 and 11 students in them. It's really tricky. We're right on that cusp, being really small at 10 and 11, or being large when you put them together at 22 and 23.
I'm not a fan of that. I'm not gonna hide it. I don't think that's fair to those children, and so I'll leave it at that for now.
Go ahead, Betty.
What does, are we adding a teacher to Manchester?
Yeah, Manchester does need, they have a kind of a bubble class moving in. So they have currently one 5th grade, so they will have to get up to 2 5th grades. They'll actually have 2 of each except for 4th grade. So they'll need, and their class size roughly is somewhere in that 16, 17 range for 2 teachers.
Will 4th grade still be one teacher?
Just be one teacher, yep.
Go ahead, John.
So maybe my brain's working a little slow because I had a long afternoon, but we're gonna have kindergartners with 1st graders who have never gone to school before. Is that correct? I want to be clear. Okay.
And last time I asked for what the classes would look like, class configurations would look like with any proposed plan. Is that something that can be done?
Say that again.
Last time I asked for what the classes would look like for next year, with numbers for each class and you know, like if it's going to be K1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Yep,
I'd like to see, need to see it.
okay. Do you want that just for Wayne or for all
All
four
of the
elementary? Okay,
elementary
that's- I
schools,
just
so
wanna
we
make
can
sure I'm-
compare
Yeah.
class sizes at all of the schools. Because I see, in our, well, Reedfield right now has 18 in a kindergarten and 20 in a kindergarten. I just need to see, I need to see
Next year.
what the classes would look like next year, under any proposed plan.
So in addition to that, I'm still wondering if there's going to be an EdTech in the kindergarten in Mount Vernon with possibly 21 or 22 students.
Great question. We don't have that factored in at this point.
Because I go back to the whole equity. If we're looking at equity across the district, that with one teacher and 22 kindergartners, where the other schools have 16, 13, a lot less. It's the equity issue.
Well, we do have an ed tech there, but we kind of consider it a floating ed tech. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Delmar.
Currently, each elementary school has one regular Ed Tech 3 in each building that may have a variety of different jobs. So right now, my Ed Tech 3, for example, does a lot of work in all the classrooms for periods of time. So that teacher or Ed Tech may be assigned more time in that kindergarten, but an additional Ed Tech was not added at this time.
Any further discussion?
I just have one question, Jay. I'm not sure if you could answer this or not, but I know that in the past, parents could request that their students go to a different elementary school. Is that still a possibility if parents request that?
Absolutely, yes. Yep.
Okay.
That's, from my understanding, is that's always been honored. Any requests in the district have been honored. So
Okay.
we would continue to do
All
that
right,
for sure.
thank you.
I know Wayne has several that go to Reedfield. Several.
They're pre-K, correct me if I'm wrong, again, Wayne pre-K, any Wayne pre-K students do go to
Right.
Reedfield for pre-K.
Right, but
Correct.
we also have other grades going to Reedfield.
So, yeah, looking at Mr. Boston, he's nodding yes, so
I
the
know
answer is
that
yes.
for a fact. Because they like Mr. Boston, that's why they go there.
Can't take too many more.
Wayne does not get equal treatment with the dual classes, but it's so small to say that we should separate it is, it's not possible.
I strongly disagree with that statement, Gary.
So if
There's
you,
a big difference between a kindergartner and a first grader to me, a huge difference.
Okay.
There's a huge growth between my son, between kindergarten and first grade. I will not vote for a budget that combines a kindergarten and first grade.
so what I'm saying to you is, we have dual classes in Wayne for years. And
I don't
I
think it's
totally
right.
agree with
I
you.
said that in last year's budget. I did not think that's right.
Go ahead, Dave.
It is hard to see the students and the teachers getting burdened more by basically across the schools, but particularly as demonstrated in Wayne, significantly larger class size with limited additional teaching support. So that's hard to see and stomach. I understand where it's coming from. We specifically asked for how can we avoid this extra. That's it.
I'll go back to the statement I've said for a while now. If we're gonna have all these schools open, parents and people in the community are gonna have to learn it comes at a cost. And I wanna be as frugal as I can with people's tax dollars. I get it, I'm a taxpayer, everyone around this table is a taxpayer in the communities. And I work on the other end of the state government when it comes to the money coming to the schools. But if people are gonna leave these schools open and have these children come to school, they all deserve the equal and same education. And to say they're gonna combine kids in classes, 11 kids and 11 kids for 22 kids to be in a class, and say that that kindergartner, first grader, second grader, third grader is gonna get the same education as the student in Reedfield. They're great teachers in this district. I don't take away they're gonna give everything they have, but there is a big difference. There's a big jump of children from kindergarten to first grade to second grade. There's a big jump in that. And I get, we wanna cut the budget, but I'm just not a fan of saying, well, you go to Wayne, so you're gonna be, or whatever, Mount Vernon, whatever school it is, sorry. But whatever school you're in, you're gonna be in a combined classroom because that's where your parents chose to live. If we're gonna have these schools open, there's a little bit of hurt to that. That's how it works. And I don't think it's fair to those children that people aren't willing to make the decision, their parents and people in the community aren't willing to make the decision to combine schools. And I'm not about to put that back on the children. I will fight it. I will fight it to the end. I will make sure people know. I think people need to know what's going to happen to their children in schools.
That's why I wrote the letter I did, to stop that, because I agree with you.
How did the A-Team come to that? How did the A-Team come to that determination that would work for this? Because you've obviously made, you're to be applauded from where we were a week ago as far as thinking about the decrease that certainly the folks from the towns and we've called for. But how did that particular determination get made that would be okay at that level? Because I am not, I have a first grader myself, and I know mine's, I got the note today at home, of difficulties, and that's just one. And that means the teacher has to stay behind, at least in my case, and that there's a lot of dynamics there. And we've had an RTI over that situation. We've gone through some of these dynamics, and it's a question that I've posed to Jay in terms of how much that's happening within the district and what the recommendations are from that, whether that's therapy or behavioral support or guidance counselor support. And I see a guidance counselor was taken out as well in another district. So I just kind of wonder how, that particular decision was made, versus, and the guidance counselor ones that I get concerned about as well, just because all three of my kids have needed that support, and two of them are mostly normal. The third is, I think it's a milkman's child personally, but at the same time, I hope my wife's not watching this video, but, it's hard, and when that teacher has to be in that situation, they are no longer with the 13 other kids that need their attention, and if that ed tech's in with someone else, now you're like, what are we doing? So could you kind of fill us in on sort of what the team has to say?
So again, when we were looking at priorities within the budget, and then based on the conversation from last meeting last week, when I knew I had a resignation, and then knowing the history in Wayne, that's kind of where that came from. It was me that initiated that. On a personal note, I have taught a combined class before, so I do know the demands that go along with that. And it's not a decision that was made lightly or easily. It was just kind of, again, I know where Sean is totally coming from, and I want to acknowledge that, and I also want to acknowledge that I think our teachers can do a good job with it, especially if we give them the flexibility they need within that setting to be able to do that. And again, that's a conversation and that's work we have to do around curriculum and such. And that does, that does go back to his equity question that he was asking about. So it was not an easy decision to make. But we also felt that if we were going to go back to combined classes, we did have to give them that extra ed tech as a support, throughout the school. And it would be one that could be used throughout the school. But we do know that if you're going to combine, they're going to need a little extra support.
Sure.
And that was better than hiring another teacher, but it's less expensive if you hire an ed tech, so.
Do they already have that floating EdTech 3? And so this would be an additional
Yes.
EdTech 3?
Yes. Yeah.
Citizens' comments on the budget. Any more discussion from the board?
Could you walk us, Bridget or Jay, could you walk us through the revenue?
The revenue side, yes.
Yeah,
You mind?
I can't find it. Here it is.
Yep, Bridget will walk us through that, thank you.
Okay. If you look at the green sheet, the front side of that is the summary of the budget, of the revenues. And so the very top number is the preliminary ED 279 number that we have received, which is $3,774,661. The state also gives us additional money for any teachers that we have that are nationally certified on top of that. Tuition revenue, I'm keeping it level with what we're receiving this year, which is around $550,000. We also receive transportation revenue. That's for field trips, that's for summer rec program. We supply the transportation for a lot of the area summer rec programs, so that revenue comes back into because we still pay our staff and run our buses. So they pay us for that. It's also, we do repairs on the Fayette school buses, so that's all transportation revenues. Fiscal services, $20,000. That's mostly services that we provide to Fayette from our staff. A lot of technology services are provided to them, special ed services, food service. Food service actually goes into the food service program, but it is another service that we provide to them. Assessment. So there's several areas where we help Fayette, and they pay us for that. Gates receipts, that is our plays, middle school and high school plays, and mostly our basketball, high school basketball games that we take in those activities. Miscellaneous, $105,000. That's anywhere from state agency client reimbursements if we have some of those students in our district and the state reimburses us for that. It can be our rent that we receive from the town of Wayne for their section that they rent out of the Wayne Elementary School. And so there's, it could be insurance proceeds if we've had an insurance claim that so it's all types of miscellaneous type revenue. And then balance forward, I've got it $600,000. I have calculated my balance forward once already this year. I'll start doing it almost every pay period now, after every payroll. Excuse me. And I'm very confident that I can make my $600,000 as far as carryover comes. That comes from a combination of an amount that I may have been over last year that I carry. It could be additional revenues that I've received this year, or it could be unexpended expenditures that were budgeted this year that I don't need. So that's the combination.
Like the literacy coach.
Yes, and the math coach that we didn't fill this year.
Yeah.
Then we go down to the bottom section. There is all the different local dollar amounts that are raised. The first one at $8,404,478. That's the amount that is mandated by the state on the ED 279. That's how much the state says we have to raise in order to receive our subsidy. And that's based on student count and valuations. The next amount is local-only debt. That is debt that has been approved by referendum at the town level. That is local only. There's no state funding. So that's a portion of the middle school construction. The middle school construction was only 86% approved by the state. So the additional 14% is local funded. We also, at that same time, did some additional fields down across Tingley Brook. And the high school renovations that took place that increased the size of this area right here and added another wing and did some other improvements. That was all done at local dollars. So this is the portion of the local dollars that needs to be raised for that approved referendum debt. The bottom number, the $5,062,794, that number is basically backed into. I take whatever our total budget is, back out all the other revenue numbers, and this is what I need. This is the additional money I need to fund the budget that's been presented to you. So in total, the towns would need to raise, for the budget that's been put before you right now, is $13,649,874. And that will total the budget that's been presented to you. Now, if you flip that page over, this is how that dollar amount will break out by town. In the top section, I'm just listing the valuations, and these are state valuations. These may not be the valuations your town itself is using, but these are the ones that the state uses, and that's what we have to use based on our consolidation plan. And I'm just giving you showing you what they are now compared to what they were last year, and whether there was an increase or a decrease in the valuation at each town, and what that went up or down. The second section on that page, that's that $8,404,478 that the state mandates that we raise, and that the state mandates how much each town must raise of that. And so going across, you'll see the amounts for each town. Right now, the ED 279 is based on a maximum 8.28 mils that a town must raise towards school funding. If you, as you'll see, Wayne is less than that. It's 8.20, and that is because Wayne's valuations are so high and their student counts are so low that they basically are raising 100% of their section of the ED 279. And so the next small section under that, I'm just giving you a comparison to what it is the current year based on what the projection is for next year and whether it goes up or down by town. The next section is the additional local that needs to be raised, and that's the additional local debt plus the extra additional that I backed into. And those two together, per the consolidation agreement, is raised based on 50% valuation by town, 50% population by town, both on a 3-year rolling average. So I have to average that out every year, and that's where the percentages come from. And it shows you how it breaks out by town. And then the next section below that is the adult ed, which is up for next year by the $12,000 that he wants for the high school CDL program. And I use the same percentages for the adult ed as I use for the additional local at the general fund budget. Then I take the required local, the additional local, and the adult ed local, and add those together to combine what each town needs to raise for the budget that was presented to you tonight. It shows you how the total increase above this year for all schools combined is $707,416, which is a 5.3% increase. And then it shows you broken out by town. I also show below that what each town raised increase was for the current year and the percentage for the current year. Below that, I give you the October 1st enrollment. Oh, that's got a typo in it. That should be 2018, 2017. And how many students are in each town, and I take the total local dollars and divide it by the students to get an amount per student for each town and then for the district as a whole. And below that, I'm also showing the high school and middle school tuition rate that we charge Fayette or any other town that sends students to us. We do have a couple other towns that send students to us, individual students. And those amounts are set by the state. We use state tuition rates and how many students we have in each of those categories. Any questions?
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Oh,
Motion to accept the budget as is.
Question.
Go
I
ahead,
have,
Diane.
I have a question, just a procedural thing. So I'm looking now at this thing with the highlighted red, yellow,
Yep.
and the yellow items are things that have been moved to next year.
Would be the
The following year.
2021,
Yep.
yes. Those are things that would stay kind of on our radar moving forward, not in 1920, but in 2021, things that we may want to take a look at, come back and take a look at.
That was my question. When we decide to approve this, a budget, are we saying we are agreeing to do those things that we have projected to that year and the following year at this time, or no?
No.
Okay,
Just means, it's just to give you a glimpse
okay,
at what's going to come up next year.
okay, thanks.
Go ahead.
Is, I move to accept the budget.
No, we don't want to do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, it was- I'd rather talk about it some more.
Go ahead.
These are some pretty steep cuts, and I do share Sean's concern about the teacher at Wayne. Is the rest of the board satisfied with this percentage? What are all of you thinking?
On the budget as a whole, we're doing the best we can. I'm still working on Wayne because Wayne sounds like they're paying the full cost per student. They're paying thousands more per student than the other towns, and yet they're losing the teacher. And so that feels a little, hey. But I'm looking for is the EdTech, makes sense to add that EdTech in the ATeam, in the ATeam discussions. The feeling of the teachers, the feeling of the administration, is that still going to leave? Is there anything more we could do to support, without adding that teacher, because we're really across the board, across the district, we're paying with these cuts to try and keep the budget requests down. Is there anything else that came up that would be an interim step that would support the teachers and the students so that it wouldn't be as serious as it could be? It doesn't have to be, because as you said, we know our teachers are excellent, and our administration, and we've got a lot of good work going on. But we want to use that to make it better for the students and for our district, and not strain them to where they leave. Because you get that in many industries, especially in teaching. People get put in too much, and they leave and we lose them totally. And so is there more of a compromise that could be made?
So I'm looking at the additional .5 FTE custodian and wondering how much of a priority that really is when we're talking about cutting teachers.
So one of the things that's happened, and I don't think it's through anyone's fault, is that we have had some custodial staff that's been out. And what's happened is it's kind of trickled down. And like, for example, Sean has a person whose main job is to go around and fix things for us. Unfortunately, he's had to use that person to fill in as a custodian a lot of times because of extended absences and such. So what happens is now we've got Sean going back and having to be the person to kind of fix those things. So what's happening is you've got things that are falling off the map a little bit. So that particular position is, it's currently a half-time position to take, it helps us in the summer months. So our thinking was to be able to kind of get things back on track and fix the way they're supposed to by increasing that by a half.
But if you had your full crew on a regular basis.
Right.
You may not really need that extra person?
That's potentially correct, yes.
Okay.
I would,
What-
I would also agree with Kathy.
Likelihood that for next year that those absences would continue.
Yeah. We have an aging staff of custodians, so I'd like to say in a perfect world, we'd get through it and we'd never have to see this again, but in all likelihood, it will continue. To what level it will continue, it's kind of a guess.
I was just wondering if it was due to injuries or, sometimes someone has to have an operation.
Right, yeah.
And so they're out for extended time.
Yeah.
If any of that is happening, that probably won't be happening next year.
Right.
Then, I'm not sure I can support the addition of a half-time custodian when we're cutting teachers as drastically as we are.
I have a question also about the maintenance projects on the second side of this page. The big ticket items that I understand need to be done, like the roof at the middle school and the bleachers, maybe keyless entry. Did we already, when we were with the select board folks, somebody proposed looking into whether they can be paid over time. Is that what the lease purchase over 5 years means?
Yes.
So that's because it was a $125,000 thing.
Right.
Is there a way to pay less and for a longer time, or do we want to look at that? I'm just wondering about that. And with the other items besides the bleachers that don't have that comment next to them, I'm wondering about if there's a way to do that.
Yeah.
The bleachers are actually considered equipment, and so that's why we can actually lease purchase them. A repair cannot be lease purchased.
Oh, okay.
Jay, can you explain to us again the necessity of the keyless entry? I know that this is just at the high school, right?
Yes.
So I know that currently there is a system, I mean, the doors are all locked, you have to buzz in, and so
Right.
how would the keyless entry improve security?
It really comes down to like after hours when it's actually locked up. Like our building is used, as you guys know, quite frequently by the communities. So there are like keys to get in and codes to get in. What this keyless entry system would allow us to do is to be able to say, for example, on the weekend, if someone comes in and sets off the alarm, which happens almost on a
Weekly thing.
yeah, weekly, I think it happens almost every single Saturday and Sunday.
It always has.
It allows us to be able to say, whose key swiped that, so if they take off and they're gone and nobody's here to kind of take control of that, we're able to see that. We can also, with this system, kind of shut it down and say, from 11 to 5 a.m., those card keys aren't going to work to get in. The building is actually shut down during that time. And again, it just improves security, and we know who's coming and going in our buildings.
So Sean states that there's a lot of people come in this building, don't even work here. He says he caught them.
It's a community building.
It is a community
Right.
building.
But he wants to control so that the police and everybody else are not called out. Because they trip the alarm once
Right.
you open.
And that's not a new problem. I'll confess, I've done it myself.
I had dancing snowflakes in the middle of the night. So I know what a nuisance that is, but I also know what education, re-education of all the staff. Yeah.
I hate to see all the stuff that we have, the equipment, computers and everything else, come in and somebody damage one of them, and it's gonna pay for itself.
So I'm just
Could
going to talk
happen.
about equity again, because the same could be said for the middle school, and they don't have keyless entry, so.
Or the elementary schools.
Or the elementary schools.
Yeah.
So just thinking at this point, with this budget, that's, $11,000 is not a lot, but if we're looking at cutting teachers and
So how
combining
much are you willing
classrooms
to pay Sean? That's what the question.
to
Coming
come in
in.
and,
Last week he came in 3 times.
it's always been that way. So is that extra pay for him? Does he get paid extra for coming in?
should be.
But does he?
Usually Louis that comes in, so, and he does
No,
get.
he would get extra pay.
He gets
right.
the extra
But if
pay,
Sean came, would Sean?
No, because
Okay.
John's salary, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hearing from the board that I think that we really would like to investigate putting that teacher back in for Wayne Elementary School at least, and maybe seeing what else we can do with the numbers. Is that what I'm hearing from the board? Because that's how I'm feeling.
I just wonder if there's something else in the budget that's not new, but something that people might be willing to give up to think about this in a different way. I don't know. I'm just putting that out there. It may not be something that was added. It may be something that's been here and that maybe we could, and I have no idea what that would be, but I just would like us to think bigger.
I just want you to realize there's a couple things still floating out there. I just locked in yesterday my propane price, now that I found out what we're actually getting for boilers and the 2 new replacements. This budget has been reduced by $11,450 because of the propane price that I was able to lock in. We're going to be going out to bid on the diesel and number 2. I can't guarantee. Those fluctuate more than the propane does, so I'm not really positive how that's going to come in, but I'm hoping to have that figure within 2 weeks. And we also, tomorrow, hopefully, will know the range of the Blue Cross increase. And by April 1st, we're supposed to know what ours is. So again, we've got a 10% increase built in there, so we may be able to save some money there. So I just want you to know that those things are still floating out there. This budget is not totally said and done as you look at it right now. There may still be some changes that we haven't taken into consideration yet.
I do have a question. The Manchester Elementary School parking lot, is that like paving?
It's on the front.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just hold it up again, Alex. I just have a hard time finding
3,500.
3,500?
Oh,
30.
That's for crack fill.
Crack fill.
It's just to fill the cracks and stuff, to keep it, to make the pavement last longer.
Okay.
So I guess I'll ask this question of the board. Are there any kind of directives you're giving me in terms of, to bring back to you? We're actually scheduled to vote. The actual budget vote will be on April 10, so we still have a little bit of time. We did have a tentative meeting set for next week, but we also have one on the 3rd also as part of our regular meeting. So I will, one of the things that I definitely heard was to bring what the class configurations would look like for all 4 elementary schools. You guys definitely want to see that. I know we talked a little bit about JMG also. We did talk about EdTech in Mount Vernon was also brought up. We did talk about the maintenance position as well as the keyless entry being 2 things that we kind of wanted to take a closer look at also. So I'm just wondering if there's any other directions or if I've missed anything that you feel is important that I could actually work on in the short term to see what that looks like. If there's anything else from the board, at the board level.
I guess what Kathy was saying, are there things that are in the current budget that may not be needed any longer, or something like?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that we could look at if it's,
Yeah, and like Kathy, I don't know if there is anything, but it's worth looking at.
Yeah. So, and I guess to go back to kind of Sean's question too, if we say we're not going to combine classrooms in Wayne, what that automatically does is bring back another position at the Manchester Elementary School. Because remember, I was going to use the position saved there to move it over. So you know right away what the cost of that roughly is going to be.
$58,000.
Right, exactly. So I do have that on here also, because I think that's, that is a discussion point as well. So.
And that's where I was asking, is there any further middle ground between actually not combining classes, but not putting as much burden on the students and teachers that the simple combining of the classes provides? Is there another step that would be below having to get the 2 new teachers, but still would address the concern about what the combination does? Or address it further, because you've already talked seriously about, with the EdTech and the so forth.
Go ahead.
So just to clarify, if you did bring a teacher back to Wayne, you wouldn't need the other ed tech, or you would keep the extra ed tech too?
No, if we bring the teacher back, we wouldn't hire an extra ed
Ed
tech,
tech.
right?
So,
Yes.
so, okay, and right now, that budget for an ed tech is still in there.
Yes,
So-
yes.
Well, actually, Wayne is down by 2 teachers, remember?
Oh.
So 1 teacher resigned, and 1 teacher's being transferred, and then we put in 1 ed tech. So they're actually down by 2 teachers, but they're increased by 1 ed tech.
Okay.
Go ahead, John.
What's the, maybe it's on here, I'm sorry. What's the cost difference between an ed tech and a teacher?
$24,000.
14,000. It's on the second page of that, of my 3-page thing. It's on the second page.
So, okay, go ahead.
I guess I wonder if it's possible to hear, not this moment, but before our next meeting again, from the A-Team and you about on all the things that you just mentioned. Plus, I don't know about you guys, but I've heard a lot of calls from people since our last meeting who I just don't think that in Reedfield anyway, I'm not convinced that if this budget, even though it is slashed from where it started, I'm not sure people are gonna go for it. And so my question for A-Team and you would be, what can we do, is there any way we can move, it's a two-part question. Part one is, is there anything that we can do or give up in any form so that we can keep the things that are directly with students? The positions or the equipment or whatever that are directly with students' education and safety.
Yeah,
Is there anything that we could, and I know you've already done that, but
That's a good question. Though, moving forward, I think I would like to see that class-to-teacher ratio EdTech information. I think that'll help us a lot with the conversation we're having right now. So, until we get that information, I think, we'll just wait and see.
I have one more question about that. I know that long, long ago, when the middle school was moving toward multi-grade classes, staff and administrators did a lot of research and looked to others' research about what was best practice. And I wonder about that research at K1 and actually every grade level that we're talking about making changes, staffing changes. If there is such research, or if the professionals here can give us guidance about that, what is best practice?
And in the meantime, we'll try to move some things around and try to make some reductions if we can too.
So Alex, just making sure you're talking about the grade level configurations, right?
Well, yes, I think teacher and EdTech is our first priority. That's probably sounds like our goal would be, if we could keep the teacher, that would be the best situation. However, if that doesn't work, we'll see if we could relocate some resources to make Plan B work. And at the same time, see if we could also make some other reductions as well to bring down the total budget down. Because I agree that if we try to present this to the towns, it's going to be a very rough sell. Especially after our select boards talked to us and told us that, hey guys, this ain't working.
Can we take care of this at the April 3rd meeting?
Next meeting?
I think so. I'll actually work on some answers and get them to you ahead of time over the course of the next week. I guess it's up to the board to decide, do you want to have that 27th meeting? Or are you good having that follow-up conversation on April 3rd?
Tell me again, I know you just said this, when is the vote?
April 10th.
So we would have 2 more meetings if we skipped next week, because it is a tentative date. We would still have 2 weeks to discuss the budget.
We'd have April 3rd to discuss the budget, and April 10th would be the vote on the
Yeah.
budget, so,
So we'd have one meeting before the vote.
right.
When could you get the information about the teacher-student ratio classrooms?
I'm going to work on that
Could you
tomorrow,
get it
yeah.
to us by, maybe if we do the 27th, could you get it?
Oh, yeah, definitely, I can have it
Oh,
ready
okay.
before the 27th, for sure.
I lean towards meeting on the 27th, but that's purely personal because I'm out of state on the 3rd.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to have 2 more meetings, just to see if we could find anything else. Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
I agree.
I agree.
Do you want to vote or no?
No, it's on the schedule, so I don't think we need to vote. It was just confirming if we're having it or not, so we will schedule for the 27th. And I have some things to work on to bring back to you guys in the short term.
Any comments? Any more? adjourned.